Coming up on Garden Talk.
When they get switched to flower, the day of flower, no matter when they got switched, no matter how long ago they got vegetative nutrients, I give them 2 tablespoons per gallon of 484, period. Nematodes work really well too, but you have to be diligent with them as well and keep dosing them because they still come back. Their fungus gnats come back so easily. I get very equal results from topping and low stress training. The difference is that low stress is less stressful, and I've noticed that even topping the plant can stress it out and it can be droopy. I watch all these videos. This dude told me it was the best way. Like, everybody say their way is the best way too. The only way for you gonna know is just to go ahead and do it and figure out what's comfortable for yourself.
What's up, everybody? If you that don't know me, my name is Chris, aka Mr. Grow It, and you're tuned into the Garden Talk podcast. This is episode number 19. In this episode, I talk with Mr. Goodbuds. He is a fellow YouTuber with over 19,000 subscribers on his channel, and his videos have over 1.3 million views combined. He does like to keep it simple in the garden, and in this video, we'll learn about his style of gardening and some of the easy gardening techniques that he does. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating or review. If you're on YouTube, that thumbs up button helps out a bunch. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, feel free to share this podcast with others. And if you want to support this podcast even more, you can do that through Patreon. The link is patreon.com/MrGrowIt, and I'll provide a link down in the YouTube description section below. Before we get into the episode, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Dutchpro Nutrients. As I mentioned in a previous episode, Dutchpro is now a long-term sponsor of the podcast, and they sent me over their nutrients to try out. I'll be using their base nutrients, additives, and pH regulators. They are a plant fertilizer company that was established in Amsterdam 30 years ago, and their nutrients are available in several countries across the world. I'll leave a link to their Amazon store down in the description section below, and you can use coupon code MrGrowIt10DP for a discount on their products. Alright, now let's get into the episode. Okay, we are back. Garden Talk podcast, and we are here with Mr. Goodbuds. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. What's going on, Mr. Grow It?
Good. I'm glad. Thanks for joining me today. You know, I think the audience ought to know how long we've been trying to do this.
Man, I was gonna say when we finally did it, you could go ahead and talk crap about it because it's been a long road trying to go from doing what I normally do to doing this type of content. So I had to get my stuff together, so yeah, it took us a minute.
Yeah, I had like 4 or 5 people request you, and I've been even telling people, I'm like, we're trying to get it done. So finally, we get to sit down, get it done, and we'll get it out there for the people that want it. So cool.
That's cool, man. I'm cool to hear that people request me on your platform because you've been out doing it a lot longer than me, so that makes me feel real good. So I'll make sure everything is up to par, and I'm looking good on your platform too.
Well, you have a real large following, right? You got like almost, you're about to have 20,000 people following you on YouTube, which is huge. So, you know, there's got to be some people in my audience that don't know who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got into gardening?
Getting into gardening was a long journey for me. I started wanting to grow probably about 8 years before I actually started. And during that time, I was living in a house where the basement was all screwed up. I live in Detroit, and in my old house, a lot of Detroit houses had problems with flooding basements and stuff. So I tried to start then, and I literally built an entire grow like out of 2x4s and black plastic and stuff. Then the basement flooded, destroyed all of it. Had plants, it destroyed the plants, and it was all bad. And that was my first attempt. And so from that point on, I literally was so obsessed with growing that I researched it nonstop for like 5 years straight after that, until I finally moved into the house I was in, and I kind of forgot about it. It's funny because once I moved, I forgot, and it was one day I was over my boy's house, and I still had these same seeds, the same pack of seeds, so AK-47 seeds, the first seeds I grew on my first season. I had those seeds literally 8 years. I had those seeds for almost 5 years. Oh no, I had them for like 6 years. I had them for 5 years, and then I stopped. So when I moved, I forgot about it. So I went over to my boy's house who had been growing, and it was about the time to start growing, right when my first AK-47 season had started, my first YouTube season. And he asked me, he was like, how come you ain't started trying to grow yet? It's the time. He He's like, it's that season now. And I was like, you know what? I do still got those seeds. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and drop them. And he was growing outside, so I tried to grow outside that particular time. And if you watch my old seeds, you can actually follow everything I'm saying, because I started it outside. And then I got like a super crazy rain, and it just like I came home one day and all the plants was tilted over and they was all laying down and the dirt was falling out of the cups and stuff. So I moved it all inside, and I just started going from there. And then one day, the same guy told me, he was like, "How come you don't record everything and then make videos for YouTube for it?" Because I had been doing it, and I'm like, I've been recording it for myself. And I'm like, you know what, I should do that. So I literally, in my first video, I took every clip I recorded, not making it for YouTube, but I just took the clips I recorded for myself and made my first video out of it. And I've just been doing it ever since then. So it's been a pretty cool journey since then.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So you just had that one outdoor season or one outdoor period, and then you brought indoors, and you've been indoor ever since? Or?
Yeah, it was like a week outside, and then I didn't make it. I'm trying to do outdoor grow right now, but yeah, I was like a week outside. It scared me too much, and I just bought it inside and got a tent and started from there.
Gotcha. Are you mostly growing autoflowers or Photoperiods or what?
At first I was growing both. It took me a while to figure out what I really like the most, and at this point I can say for sure that I prefer Photoperiods. But I do grow autoflowers, and I've had a lot of recommendations for autoflowers that people like, and I've grown a lot of great autoflowers too. So I do like them both, but for me personally, and the amount of space that I have, I prefer doing Photoperiods, so I've been sticking to that mostly. But if I had more space, I would grow everything. I like the Photoperiods. I want to get into breeding and stuff too, and I want to start making some feminized seeds. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I know that. I've seen some of your indoor grows on YouTube, and one thing I noticed you really like to do is you like to keep things simple. You like to make things easy. You have kind of a more laid-back, hands-off approach. And that's really what I want to get into here in this podcast is ways to make things easy, simple techniques that you do, so on and so forth. So we're going to get into the questions that I sent you several weeks ago when we first tried to plan this out. And we'll go through your grow style, and we'll talk about some of the things you do. So for indoors, what size grow space are you in?
So I have 3 tents. I work in a 2 4x4s and a 3x3. I like the 4x4 the most. For my photoperiod plants, it's perfect for what I like to do. I like to keep 4 7-gallon pots flowering like towards the end. One of my tents is just a veg tent, which is, well, I don't know if you can see. This is the flower tent, but right next to it is the veg tent. And so I veg plants out in there and then flip them and flower right away. And I've been doing that with my other tent too, but my other tent was mainly the autoflower tent, mostly. But yep. 4x4 mainly is my favorite space so far, but then again, I'm in a very tight space as well, so I would like to get in bigger spaces.
I hear you. I'm similar to you. I've got small area to work with myself. Right now, I just got one 4x4 and one 2x4, so I'm actually running smaller than what you got there. Now, what are you using for lighting for the 3 tents?
So I got all Mars Hydro lighting. I got right now, I got in the 3x3, I have an FC 4800. I don't run it at full power. I run it about 400 watts during the peak of flower. It's built for a 4x4, but I like to go by. I got this from Mr. Canucks too, that you go off for 35 watts per square foot, and I've had great success with it since I started. So I've been sticking with that ever since I started. So I go strictly off of that. In the other 4x4, I have a TS 3000. And I like to have like around 600 watts true watts from the wall in there. And then I also have the other 4x4. I have 2 SP 3000s currently right now, and they're both running at 300 watts. So 600 watts. So I like to keep them around the same thing at 35 watts per square foot. The science behind it, I'm not completely sure about, but I've had wonderful success with it, and I've done less than that, and I've had less success. So I'm thinking that's a sweet spot for what we're trying to go for here.
I've had my hands on the SP3000, 2 of them in a 4x4. I did a part test on it, and it looks like it rocks. So
It does.
Yeah,
It does.
that's cool to see you running that, because when I was doing the part test, I'm like, man,
I saw
anybody
that
who's
too.
running 2 of those, it's going to be working real good for them. So that's cool to see. I had my hands on the TS3000 too. I thought that was pretty good. And then the FC4800, that's one of the newer ones, right, that they released. That's the bar style one? How do you like that?
The FC4800 is awesome. Actually, with the bar style lights that it has, I have really good light penetration. And the first time I used it was with some very small clones that turned out really, really great. The buzz, I grew OG Kush a lot of times already, and the one time I grew it, starting with very small clones underneath the 4800, I had a really nice size buzz, really dense buzz, and it was really good. So I'm thinking, I actually really liked that light for that first run. So I'm going to be using it. I'm going to stick with it for a while. I have the detachable ones too. So I'm actually going to be putting the 6500 in the other 4x4. I'm liking the bar style lights. I'm thinking that allows a greater penetration. So I'm going to experiment more with it to see how the results we can get from it.
Yeah, it definitely helps with like the light spread across the footprint, right? Having that even light spread. That's one thing I personally like about those bar style lights. I like with the bar style lights, especially when you can dim them. You know, when you're not running CO2, you don't need to have these things at full power, right? Or else you'll fry the plants. Are you running CO2 or no?
No, I don't. I actually have. I'm sorry about that. I actually have a million kids, so that's one of my things about trying to keep everything simple, because they keep me really busy. And I got a wife, and like they keep me really busy. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on. So, like, I live in a world where I want to grow, but I'm going to make mistakes. And so, like, I try to keep things as simple as possible so that I can maintain and get good results while still being distracted by everything else in the world. And because of that, I don't use CO2, because I got so many people in the house that there's plenty of carbon dioxide floating around in here. So the kids always up here. And then I got millions of nephews, and I got cats, and so I got plenty of carbon dioxide in the house. I actually don't supplement it. I tried it once, and I didn't notice anything different. And I'm thinking that was because I already got a decent amount of CO2 in the house already.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you have people living in the same house where you're growing in, I mean, that is going to be enough CO2 for the plant. But I assume you do some sort of like air exchange in the tent. Do you have like inline fans that you're kind of exhausting out of there? How is that set up?
Yeah, that's all I have is just the exhaust fan. I run an exhaust fan in each tent. I haven't been. I don't use carbon filters. So I don't have to worry about the smell as much. Actually, I just realized that I probably should, because the dry nutrients smell really bad when you water. So I just realizing recently that I should use carbon filters, but I only got 3 exhaust fans each one. I don't have any intake fans. I allow my vents to stay open, and I leave like a vent or 2 on the side. The bigger tents, I leave 2 vents open, and in my 3x3, I just leave 1 open, and that take care of the intake of the air. And the exhaust, as the air has to be replaced as the air is being exhausted out of the tent. So it works pretty good. And I exhaust the air right into my room. I've been doing that ever since. I know a lot of people like to exhaust it out of the room completely. I wasn't able to do that in the situation that I'm in, because my room is in the attic and it's a weird room. So I just exhaust everything right into the room, and I haven't had no problems with it. So that's all I do. 1 exhaust fan, then 1 air to circulate the air inside the tent, and that's it.
It must smell amazing in there.
Oh man, when the plants are flowering, it's wonderful. I love to leave the house and then come home, and they be like, "Oh my god, oh, it smells wonderful in here." You get used to it while you're here all day.
Right. Yeah, I actually don't. I haven't been running carbon filters either, and that's a good thing to bring up, right? Is that's an optional piece of equipment. If you don't need to hide the smell, you don't need that piece of equipment. So another way to kind of keep it simple: if you don't need to hide the smell, don't even buy the equipment. Save the money there, you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think my neighbors probably I can smell it, like late flowering. You know how it is. Like even when you're like drying, like you can even smell it. You know,
the drying be something different too. That's when it transforms and it get a lot a little danker.
I've had so many like FedEx drivers and UPS drivers like just like, ooh, smells good in there. That's funny. Let's continue to talk about environment a little bit. Temperature. What do you usually aim for when it comes to temps?
So this is another thing when it comes to keeping everything simple. Ideally, like when I get into a facility, I would like to keep everything. I would like to have different temps and ranges for vegetative and flower plants. But being all in one room and not being able to do that, and having to have everything up here to keep it safe for my family. Everything pretty much runs at the same temperature and the same humidity all the time. So the only thing I can control and I can keep a difference in is the drying tent, which I like to keep it at 65% RH. But inside the room, I'm pretty much at the mercy of whatever the season is. So if it's wintertime outside, then the humidity in here is nothing. Like, there is no humidity in the air in here because it gets extremely dry in the wintertime. And there's no way I can. I've tried raising the humidity in my veg tents and stuff, and it's just impossible in this room. This room is horribly insulated, and it's just a pain. And then vice versa in the summertime, the humidity is super high. So it's kind of different in the summer because the air conditioner helps lower the humidity. So I keep the humidity around 40, 50-ish. And that's about as low as I can get it. But it doesn't bother the plants and flower, and I haven't had really any problem. At first my veg plants that were used, because I did use to run I had a humidifier that I ran in the veg tent for a while, but I was literally refilling it every few hours, which drove me crazy, and I just was like, you know what? I'm like, y'all just not gonna have no humidity because I can't do this. I can't keep up with it, and they ended up. They had during that particular growth, they adjusted to it, which I learned that the plants will adjust, and they'll do fine. Even my clones, I don't have a dome over my clones either, and they don't have a problem with that either. So they pretty relentless guys there. So they adjust, and I didn't answer the temperature. The temperature I do have great control over. I always keep the temperature around 75 in the room, period. With the air conditioner during the summer and the winter, I'm able to keep it around 75, 70-ish. I had a few times that it's gotten super, super high being in the attic. It is a fight to keep it there. That's why that's the lowest I can ever get it. But yeah, humidity though, I can't control the humidity at all.
You bring up a great point. Is you don't really have to have the optimal humidity, right? That is widely said online is you need to be in this range for veg, this range for flower, so on and so forth. You can get away with lower than that. You can get away with higher than that, right? It's not going to be optimal growth, but the plant will still grow. The plant is resilient, like you said. So if you are trying to keep it simple, if you're on a budget or whatever, you can probably get away with not having some of this equipment and not regulating humidity and stuff like that. So now people could probably argue about the overall final quality of the product. I mean, I think that's a fair views on that, but the plant will still grow, still usable. It's not going to be detrimental to your grow to where you have nothing to harvest. You know what I mean? So.
I think what people get hung up on a lot, and which was something for me starting off, is getting into learning about growing. Everybody makes it like an extremely big deal. Like everything has to be perfect. This has to be there. This has to be that way. If you're not doing this, then your stuff is trash. And a lot of people get discouraged by that. But we growing it for ourselves. And like that's what I had to tell myself. And like when I was done, I was happy with, like, even though it wasn't the greatest. Like my first time when I got done with my first grow, like it wasn't the greatest I ever had, but I was happy. And it was satisfying to me. And that's why I had to realize, like, man, I had to, like, it may not be the best of the best, but I'm not trying to, like, sell this stuff. Like, I'm just trying to appease my own pastimes. And And I think that people need to think about what's good for them and just do it and see how you like it. Like, don't get hung up on it being the best ever, or somebody tell you like this, but that's not the biggest, or it doesn't smell like. Just do it and see how you like it for yourself, and you're gonna be satisfied for yourself, and you're gonna do as much or work as hard as you need to work so that you can get what you want. I think that's really important that people remember that they're doing it for themselves.
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, you even had a grow I saw on your YouTube channel where temp went up to 106. And you still got a final product out of it, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I
did. That was amazing too. And that was another thing that showed me, like, just listening for everybody else when things like that happen, I started panicking. I panicked. Like, I came home, I opened the door. Let me tell you how hot it was. I opened the door to my room, and it was like a sauna, like, woo. And, like, I instantly started sweating. I'm like, what the heck? Like, and not only that, the aroma from the room was so strong. It was like it cooked them. Like, it was like they got cooked in the heat. And I literally panicked. Like, I lost my mind. And I went through here, opened the window, fanning them out, opened the tents all the way, took them off the bars and left them open all night. And, like, the plants was all droopy and they were hurt from it. And I panicked, and I literally thought that harvest was going to be for nothing. And it wasn't. It was wonderful. Like, you would have never knew. You would have never knew that happened to it.
That's awesome. That's funny. Good recovery. I'm glad you were able to get stuff out of that. That's great.
That was scary. That's probably one of my scariest times since I've been doing this.
Let's switch it up. Let's talk about what medium you grow in. So are you in soil, cocoa? I know you don't do, like, DWC or anything like that.
I use Roots Organic soil, which is mostly cocoa and peat moss. So it's not actually soil. Peat moss is partially soil, but it's mostly cocoa and peat moss and perlite. It's a lot of perlite too. But I use it once, and I had great results with it, and the plants all love it, and so I've been using it ever since. I don't really know much about dirt either, so I recently went to the store. There was a lot of guys walking out with bales of Pro Mix, and I was asking the guy about the Pro Mix, and he confused the crap out of me. Like, that be the kid. Like, if people complicate stuff so much, I was like, he was saying, like, you got to do this and then mix this down and then put some of this in. And I'm like, oh my god. I was like, never mind. Like, I just go get the Roots Organic because I'm not about to do none of that stuff. Like, he was talking about basically making his own amendments, which I know a lot of people do, but it was just like, I was just get the Roots Organic. I didn't even know. I thought y'all were just growing in the Pro Mix.
Are you? Does the Roots Organic? I've heard of it. I haven't grown in it before. Does it have nutrients already in it?
Yes. Yeah. It's real heavy in vegetative nutrients, and it's not too bad too that it'll burn the plants, because sometimes when I go right in the flower and I use that, I'll mix flower nutrients directly in it, and it has no issues with that either. So it's like the perfect mix. And I have used Fox Farm soil the very first time I tried to grow, and it actually was burning my plants. All of the plants, all my seedlings, they all came out kind of burnt. They were fine and they were still growing, but they came out looking kind of weird, and I didn't know why then, but now I'm thinking it was because the soil was too hot.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I primarily use the Fox Farm soil, I think. Out of the,
But then sometimes, you leave the soil out.
Yeah. That could be more breakdown and stuff like that. But I've had a few problems, but very, very few problems. Very rare to have problems with the Fox Farm. That's just me, but I have heard of people not having good experiences with that soil. But the fact that the Roots Organic has nutrients in it, so you're probably not doing any sort of feeding for the first 30, 40 days, depending on how much you're transplanting and stuff, or.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
Exactly.
Keeps it kind of easy, huh? So do you start off in like a small container and then work your way up to that 7-gallon that you spoke about?
Yeah, exactly. So especially with the photos, I always start off in like a solo cup coming from out the cloner, going to a solo cup, and they literally stay in the solo cup forever. Like, I got plants that be like 3 feet tall in the solo cup, and I literally put nutrients in the solo cup, and just put it right on top and just water it because I be so busy. But yeah, I put it in the solo cup, and I try to keep it. I try to go into 1 gallons. I like to go in between a 1 gallon before I go into the 7. So I go from like the solo to a 1 gallon after it just look like it's dying off. Then I keep it in a 1 gallon to death. And like you said, I just reamend every 30 days. But if I'm not flipping the flower or anything like that, I'll reamend with some dry nutrients. But every 30 days with the soil, I'm not feeding it all. It's just I try to keep the water around 6.5 to 6.8. And I just plain pH water the first 30 days. After that 30 days, if they're going into flower or they're going into another pot, if they're getting transplanted, they don't get fed. So and that's what I love too. That's why I try to keep everything around those same time periods too. So like if it's around that time ready to transplant, then I'll wait it all the way out, and then when I transplant, they can go another 30 days. And then I try and keep it right around. So if I have to go in the flower, which I still have to feed them, but if they go in the flower, I still try to keep it right at that 30-day limit. So I know that they ate all those vegetative nutrients and they was ready for new nutrients and stuff like that. I really ever only have to feed mostly flower nutrients. I barely ever use my vegetative dry nutrients.
So which nutrients are you using?
I use down to earth dry nutrients. So I only use a few of them. 444, the 484 rolls in flour. That's what I use for flowering. I use bone meal as a halfway through flower boost. It has 3 and 15 phosphorus and 0 potassium. And then I use their dolomite lime every once in a while too. So just those 4.
So you're fully organic then, right?
Yes. Now that's something I'm really big on. I don't agree with chemicals, and mainly because my hair too. Like things I do with my body. A lot of things I do with my body, I don't use any type of chemicals in my hair. I don't eat chemicals. I don't use things with petroleum, things like that. So I carry that over into growing the plants as well. I like to stay away from chemicals and just try and keep it completely organic. Things that you can get from the ground. Because I believe I'm also heavy on like apocalyptic situations too. And I know I want to still be able to do this after apocalypse. And so you want to be able to. I like to look up a lot of ways to like get natural nitrogen, natural phosphorus, and potassium and stuff like that, and just keep everything organic.
Gotcha. I know a lot of people. Down to Earth is very, very popular, and I actually know a lot of people that are kind of looking for instructions on how to use it. They don't give very good, clear instructions on how to use it. Can you just mention a little bit more, like how you apply that to Down to Earth, the different ones, and when you apply it?
So yeah, like I said, with the dirt, every 30 days. Now, if I do need to, if they're going to get the vegetative nutrients, then I'll do 2 tablespoons per gallon of the vegetative nutrients per gallon pot that they're in. So if they're in a 5-gallon pot, then they'll get 10 tablespoons. And then that'll be every 30 days if they're going to stay in that pot. When they get switched to flour, the day of flour, no matter when they got switched, no matter how long ago they got vegetative nutrients, I give them 2 tablespoons per gallon of 484, period. And then halfway through flour, like maybe late week 4, early week 5, I'll give them 75% 484, and then I'll give them 25% bone meal. And so basically, they're still getting the 2 tablespoons per gallon no matter what. But I'll add that up, and then I'll break it down to 75% of the 484 and then 25% bone meal. So like if it was a 5-gallon pot and I was doing 2 tablespoons per gallon, they would get 7.5 tablespoons of the 484, and then they would get 2.5 tablespoons of the bone meal. So they still got the exact same amount. I just like to give them a little boost at the end of the second half of the flower period.
That makes sense. And I know you also do microbes too, right? You inoculate with microbes. I think you're using Recharge.
Yes,
are you using anything other than Recharge, or just Recharge? And how do you apply the Recharge?
I started off using Roots Organic Organism XL. And then I started to Recharge. The only reason they both exactly the same for me. They both Recharge didn't do any better than Organism XL. The only difference that was very important is that Organism XL clumps and it gets really hard and it like turns into like these like rocks. And then it's like basically it takes you half the time trying to break it down so that you can feed it to the plant. And the Recharge doesn't do that. It stays in that powdery form the whole time. But the microbes are extremely important. I found that having a good micro life in the soil, however you put it, microbiology, living with the soil, living with those microbes in it, is very important for breaking down the having the organic nutrients that I use. It works hand in hand with the dry nutrients. So that's the only thing I do. Those dry nutrients and the Recharge microbes once a week and some pH water, and that's it. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, not too bad. And talking about microbes, it's, we're talking about making things easy, maybe saving some money, things like that. Microbes, when you're growing the organic side, like you mentioned, they're so important. So that might not be something that you kind of want to skimp out on, right? So you're going to get a lot better results if you do have those microbes breaking down, right?
Exactly.
So, it's a good call out. So Recharge using just in flowering or using throughout the whole grow?
I use it the whole time. It's most important for me in flower. I make sure I never miss a feeding of Recharge in flower, but I do use it the whole time. But sometimes I'm a little more lax about using it in veg, just because it's not. The veg plants kind of grow. Like veg is veg. The veg time is time for them to heal. They're able to heal themselves. They're able to recover and like it's a more of a much more relaxing time. Like it's like once you get into flower, it's like a race. So like then during that time, I make sure they get recharged every week on the dot. Like there's no missing, no recharge. And it's crazy because it works really well because you can see. It says it on the bag, like noticeably you'll notice the difference in your plants. You do, they'd be really happy like the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. And not having the microbes in veg. I mean, if you're working with a quality bag of soil, right, it already has those microbes in there to start. It's going to be enough for the first 30, 40 days or whatever. So, keeping it easy, just inoculating the flower. I like it. Mm-hmm. How about plant training? Let's switch it up to that. Let's talk about what do you typically do for plant training throughout the grow? Plant training.
So, with the plant training, depending on what I'm doing. So I found that with the Photoperiods, this is all in keeping it easy. So for me, topping and low stress training, I get very equal results from topping and low stress training. The difference is that low stress is less stressful, and I've noticed that even topping the plant can stress it out and it can be droopy, especially if you got more than one top and you topping all the tops. It can stress the plant out and get droopy. And so I don't like to top Autoflowers. A lot of people say Autoflowers, they don't want to stress them out too much. So I strictly train them, and this is because I've noticed stress from topping the plant. And at the same time, I've broken the entire top off of an Autoflower, and it still is my second highest yielding plant from that grow. So I don't always know, but I try to stay away from stressing out the Autoflowers as much as possible. But topping is way easier. It's really easy just to top a plant than having to pull out all these plant ties and bending the plant over, trying not to break it, tying it down. Like that could be a lot more work than just pinching off the top and being done with it. So with the photos, I just strictly top the photos. I don't really do too much anything else unless one of them starts to grow too much taller than the rest. Then I'll do some super cropping. Just to bend it down and bring it back down to the same level. But I strictly just top my photoperiod plants. I top them like 3 or 4 times too. Like I top it once at the top. Once it gets the 2 tops, I top both of those. And then I let it grow all the 4 tops. And I top all 4 of those tops. And that's it. After that, it bushes out. After that, I usually get it. It's usually about time to get it under the scrog net for the photoperiod plant. So that's about all I do for the photoperiods. And once they get big enough, in the 4x4, I do use a scrog net. I will utilize a scrog net because it does help with light penetration and maximizing the yield. I found that when you spread those plants out, they will replace tops. Like if you bend the top down, it will replace it with 2 more tops. Even if you're not pinching them, like if you remove a top out the way, it'll allow another top to grow to where that is. So I love to take that strong net and bend down all those main tops, and then it's always a bunch of small leaves, like small tops that's right at the top of the scrub. And in a couple of weeks, when those other tops I bent over, as those grow back up, those small tops grew up as well. And then now you got a whole bunch more tops. And I like to use the 3-inch scrog net for that. And then after that, once I fill that up, and I try to strategically, sometimes though, I have recently gotten away from trying to fill up every single square. That was a big deal for me at first. But I found that's another thing. It's not that serious. Filling up every single square versus not every square, but getting most of them. And I haven't really suffered my yield too much, so like I just try to keep the work easy. After that, I put a 6-inch square scrog net on just to hold them up. And that's it. And the auto, like I said, I low stress train auto, but that is so low stress training is so much work because they grow out of it so fast. And like you a low stress train them, and then come back the next day and they've all grown up. And then I've even had plants like rip out of the ties, and like you literally have to keep tying them down every single day, and they just keep growing, and it's an everyday thing. So I try to stay away from low stress training. It was why I try to stay away from autoflowers. I gotta like autoflowers is kind of hard. Like just in those things, just talking like that, like it makes it a little bit harder. Like.
I totally get what you mean. I do a similar technique for topping. You know, I'll do the main top, then I'll top those tops, and then I'll top again. So 8 main colas or 16 main colas, depending on how many times you top. But you know, one thing I've challenged myself to do when it comes to low stress training, because I like to do the topping and then do low stress training along with it to try to keep the canopy even at that point. And you got a fly going after you right now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But you know, as I'm bending them down doing low stress training, I'm challenging myself more and more to just bend with my hands and then use no ties. And I've actually been getting away with it. And just bending it now, yes, it's going to be beneficial to get in there twice a day and do the hand bending. You can get away with once a day. You might not have as much good of a canopy just doing it once a day, but it's definitely possible to get away with low stress training without ties, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. I've done that a few times.
And then I know you do some defoliation too, right? So you pluck off some leaves every now and then. When do you usually do that?
Oh, now defoliation. Defoliation is very important too. I forgot about that. So like with autos and Photoperiods, I defoliate all of them. In the beginning, I used to not defoliate the autoflowers barely at all. But one of my grows, I particularly did it on purpose, and I did it my normal defoliation because I don't do too much defoliation. Period. Like I'm still always with photos or autos, I'm still very selective about it just to keep the top sides uncovered. But one of my auto grows, I actually particularly just went ahead and just was like, I'm just gonna defoliate like I normally would, and I had no issues out of it at all. So I defoliate all my plants. I try to keep the big fan leaves. Once those fan leaves get really big, I take them off. I like the, like when they start getting the granddaddy fan leaves, like those huge fan leaves that's been there. For those fan leaves, I take those off for the ones that's been there from the beginning. And I just try to keep the huge ones going. And like the regular size fan leaves that they grow, they grow new fan leaves and stuff. Like as they grow tops, then they grow new fan leaves, and like I like the new tops to keep those they fan leaves. And so like as the plant gets older, I take the old fan leaves and I just let it develop new fan leaves. And as it gets bigger and bushes out, as those older fan leaves that's super huge and those tops got really long, I take all those old fan leaves again and just keep doing that same routine. And I do that to the autoflowers too, and I don't have no issues out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do. It's similar. I am defoliating, particularly within the first 3 weeks of flowers when I'll pluck off the leaves. And then after the stretching period, once they're done stretching, the buds fatten up. I don't like to pluck off leaves during that time period. That's just me. I know people do it all the time. They get away with it, so on and so forth. But that's just me. And then sometimes, like, towards the very end of flowering, like day 45 of flowering, right? Like a week before, 2 weeks before harvest, I'll get in there and I'll do defoliation kind of on the middle of the canopy, so light can get down in, and that helps with the finishing, in my opinion. So that's kind of what I do there. How about, let's switch it up and talk about pests. What do you do? Do you do anything at all to prevent pests from? I know you got a housefly running around there, and you've got your grow tent right behind you. What do you do to prevent pests, if anything?
Well, I like the nematodes. I went through a lot of different things with the pests. I tried neem oil. The neem oil works really great, but it smells horrible, and it has a really strong smell. And so, like, it works really good, but it fills your entire house. Your whole house will smell like neem oil, and you can't use it during flower. So then I got away from the neem oil. I started using mosquito bits. Mosquito bits work pretty well, but not great for spider mites. I've had fungus gnats a million times, and I've only had spider mites once. So the neem oil spray worked okay. It worked great for the spider mites, and it worked great for the spider mites and the fungus gnats while it was in veg. But it wasn't really much I could do for them once it was in flower, and they still came back. So after I got away from doing that, then I started using the mosquito dunks. Mosquito dunks didn't do anything at all, obviously, for spider mites, but they worked good for a little bit for fungus gnats. But they still kept coming back. Fungus gnats are relentless. So then I started getting into using nematodes. And nematodes work really well too, but you have to be diligent with them as well and keep dosing them because they still come back. And fungus gnats come back so easily, and then these damn flies too. I like to keep fly traps up in each grow tent too. I don't know where all these flies just came from just today because they all came today to bother me. So I actually went and got some more sticky traps. I love to keep the sticky traps up too, just so that it alerts you to what you got going on. Because you don't really notice the fungus gnats for real, until you come to water the plants and you water them, and then the fungus gnats get to flying around. But I love to come in every day and just take a look at the sticky traps and see what's on them, and then you'll know that you got other things. I haven't had spider mites again since then though. So I've been pretty good. I've been pretty blessed with the pests, except for the fungus gnats. I haven't had anything else.
Yeah, I was going to mention the yellow stickies because I've seen those in your videos, and trying to keep things simple. Putting just sticky traps up is kind of an easy thing that you can do in order to help catch the fungus gnats, so you can kind of see and then take action from there. Now you're growing organically, the medium needs to be moist at all times. It's no surprise that fungus gnats will come at you a lot, right? They thrive in that wet medium on that top layer there. So having those sticky traps there are so key. And like you said, I mean, they could just invade so quickly, and then before you know it, you get that fungus gnat damage on the leaves, like the yellowing in the leaves and like those circle spots, the rust spots, just all the leaves, and then you have fungus gnats, and it gets really bad, really out of control. And those yellow sticky traps are an easy way to at least catch, to identify, and it also helps remove some of them, right? Because they're getting trapped and dying there. So
exactly.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I know we're kind of flipping things around here, kind of getting all over the place. One other thing I wanted to talk about was a thing that I saw in your video. It's not on the list of questions that I gave you, but I figured it would be good to bring up here because I thought it was pretty interesting, was the after you harvest, right, you do your trimming or whatever, and you're putting it into actually a vacuum seal. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? You said you had a lot of success doing that, right?
So that's something that I discovered recently. It's funny. I can't explain exactly how I discovered it, but basically, I needed to figure out how the product was going to be after being vacuum sealed for like a week. So it was something I don't normally do. I just happened to just do it this one time, and so before I did what I did, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be destroyed afterwards. So I just wanted to check. So as I did what I did, I took some more of the plants and I vacuum sealed them. And then I left it in there until the other thing that I was doing was ready. and then I came back to check to see how it turned out. I actually experimented with two ways. I took a bud and put it inside of like a regular Mylar bag and sealed it, and then I actually vacuum sealed some of it inside of a vacuum seal and sucked all the air out, and then sealed it that way. Now in Detroit, we got this stuff that a lot of people like to call Zaz, or exotics, and basically the way that they do it is more so chemicals and stuff that they give it this really tight look and this really strong smell. So after this week was up and I opened this pack, I was completely blown away because I was like, oh my god, it turned to exotic, like it literally got really tight, and then it smells extremely strong, and I opened it up and I was just like what did I just do? And then I did it again. Then I harvested another plant. I did it again, and
so are you letting them dry? You're harvesting and then letting them dry, then trimming, or are you just trimming and then going right to it?
So I trim it and then I put it in a jar. I leave it in a jar for a week. I let it cure normally for a week, just because it'll still be kind of soft still, and I feel like I'd be scared to do it right in there. I feel like it's gonna just crush it completely. So I let it cure regular for a week. And then I go to the vacuum seal and I just squish to make sure and you gotta start with a good material. So the material need to be a decently dense material already. Cause I've tried to do it with I've had an auto that didn't grow as great and it was kind of fluffy, and I tried that and it did not work. It just crushed it. And even after letting it cure for a week, it still crushed it. So it still has to be a decent plant. That's a decent denseness that can withstand the strength of it being squashed like that. But yeah, after a week, regular cure in the jar, put it in the vacuum seal, and I only do it for 1 week, literally only 1 week, and it's just to compact it like that, and then it does something to the smell, it's almost like it's almost like it traps everything inside. And once you open it up, it never loses it. And I take it out after that week. I break it all down like how it was, and then I put it back in the jar, and I continue curing just like normal, and it continues to cure normally. But I just do it for the look and that smell. It just boosts the smell. I'm not gonna lie and sit here and say that it makes it smoke any better, because it doesn't. And it smokes just as great either way. But for the appeal, it definitely does. It definitely does something for the appeal, especially in my city. A lot of people are looking for, and it does that. I'm not even sure if that's how they do it or not, because it seems like that's how they've been doing it, because it literally did that, and it was pretty cool. So I've been doing that ever since. Just 1 week, vacuum seal a week, and then back to the jar. I've been doing that with everything. It works pretty. I like it.
Yeah, I can imagine. The video that you showed, it looked like it was tightening up those buds quite a bit. So, yeah, as far as bag appeal, it makes total sense. So, I thought that was interesting. Figured I'd bring that up on here in case anybody either wanted to know that as a tip, or if maybe some people are already doing that and they already know about that. But it's not something we normally see.
Yeah. And I couldn't find no information on it myself either. It was one of those things that I had to come up with that little routine myself, because I researched it hard. After I did that one time, I did a lot of research. How should I do it? Should I go straight from the plant? Should I trim? How long should I dry? How long should I leave it? I couldn't find no information on it, so it was something I just had to experiment with. And so, like you said, if anybody wants to do what I did, I explain one more time. I trimmed, cured regularly in the jar for a week, vacuum seal, leave it vacuum sealed for a week, and go back to a jar for the remainder of the curing cycle. So that's it.
All right. Well, I know that most of your following, there's a lot of followers of yours that are beginners, and they're following you. You do a great job with kind of explaining things, step by step on your channel, by the way.
Thank you.
That being said, you probably get a ton of questions from beginners, so on and so forth. What advice do you have for people who are just starting out?
Advice I have for people that are just starting out is go for it. Jump into it and get your first growth started. I spent a lot of time confusing myself and harping over how I should do it. What should I do? Am I doing it right? Like, which seeds? Like getting into growing is so frustrating. Like it is so hard and so frustrating to get the information, to get some type of solid information that you need to make you comfortable enough to pull the trigger on what you want to do. It's so hard. Like you'll never be comfortable enough with the information that you get. And what I learned from that is just to do it and learn from doing it. And that's the best way I've learned. And a lot of stuff about the way that my channel is because because a lot of that stuff was hard for me to come across. Like a lot of information that was hard to come across for me. And a lot about like me being simple and simple-minded. A lot about that too is it was really hard for me. Like when I first started, I was trying to build an ebb and flow table. They had me trying to build an ebb and flow table for flower. They had me trying to build a draining field. It was crazy. It was like one of them was going to be an ebb and flow where it'll flood the whole table and then drain. And the other one was like a dripper. The veg system was like a dripper system. And like it had all these leads and this water pump and all this stuff that the guy was making me build. I watched all these videos. This dude told me it was the best way. Like everybody say their way is the best way too. The only way for you gonna know is just to go ahead and do it and figure out what's comfortable for yourself. Like, there's nobody that's gonna be able to tell you what's comfortable and what's the best way. They're gonna say it's the best way, but it may not be the best for you. And so don't get too caught up on everything. Just do it. I live my life that way. I just jump into it and do it, and I learn from there.
That's really good advice. Yeah, there are so many different ways to grow, and it can become so overwhelming. It's like, just do it, try it, do what you think best, adjust,
every
go from
part.
there.
Every single part of growing is a million different ways to do it. You'll never be satisfied.
All right, so wrapping things up, where can the listeners find you, and what do you got upcoming in the future?
Well, you already know I'm trying to. We still trying to open this dispensary. So Detroit right now is being sued, which is a whole other story. But they're being sued for basically trying to have this program for low income people. For people who aren't low income that don't qualify for it, we're being sued for it. So the dispensary may not end up in Detroit, but there will be a Goodbuds Wellness Center. We're not going to give up on that. It may not be in Detroit, but it will be. If you want to holler at me, you already know to follow me on YouTube, Mr. Goodbuds. You can keep up with me on the Instagram and see what's going on Mr. Goodbuds on Instagram. And I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well. All Mr. Goodbuds. So you can just type in Mr. Goodbuds on anything and you can look me up. I might even start a TikTok grow channel too. And just do some quick little grow things on TikTok. I've been seeing some stuff like that lately too, so I might get on there as well. I already have a TikTok page, Mr. Goodbuds, there as well, so y'all can go and holler at me there as well.
Awesome. Well, for those on YouTube, I will link his YouTube channel down in the description section below, so you can go down there and click on it to get to his channel real quick. Give him a sub, show him some love over there in the comments.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Mr. Goodbuds. I'm glad we got to finally do this. I think it was a great talk.
I appreciate you being patient with me too, man. And we went through hell trying to get this going, man. Y'all don't even know. I was waiting one of these days. I was like, man, you know what? Forget it. I was like, I don't want to do it no more. And at that point, I was gonna beg you, like, man, please, man, please. Yeah, man, appreciate that, though, man.
We got it done, yeah, we got it done for sure. But all right, I will let you go, and yeah, have a good one.
All right, man, appreciate y'all, man. We out.
Peace.